Hello and welcome to the Soul Garden. My name is Georgina Langdale. I'm the founder of Archeus, and I'm delighted to have you here with me today as we look into ways of exploring the inner and outer workings of living in a connected world. Okay, so first up, let me just say that this is going to be a conversation today about life transitions, and in particular for women, the transition that is perimenopause to menopause. We're starting to kind of come out from under the carpet. We are voicing the things that arise for us during this transition, but I can't help feeling that what we're hearing is only part of the conversation around menopause. What I'm not hearing is something, a discourse around it, or let me go better than that, a soul conversation around it that is deeper, even, yes, spiritual. So before I get into that, I'll just give you a bit of background, because it always helps to hear a bit about the story of the storyteller. So I am in my mid-50s, and I went through perimenopause some years ago. I'm officially post-menopausal for, you lose track, quite a few years anyway. And when I was going through perimenopause, I was also in the situation of so many women at this time of life. I was in this state of, my mother had cancer and was dying, and I was trying to care for her. My father had been diagnosed with dementia, and I was trying to care for him. I had also just set up my business, Archeus, and was trying to care for that. I was in a relatively new relationship and was trying to care for that. A whole heap of caring for other things. And through all of that, perimenopause was taking me on that, the roller coaster of emotions. But, it's funny, at the time, as with so many things, you don't see it until you move through it. And the benefit of hindsight is an extraordinary thing. I look back on it now, and I think that a lot of what I was feeling and attributing to other things may have been exacerbated by the experience of going through perimenopause, shifting hormones and things like that. I suspect that the way I dealt with some of those other things that I was facing, death, dying of parents, care of, losing somebody you love bit by bit as they disappeared in front of your eyes due to dementia, all of these things I probably would have dealt with differently had I not been also experiencing a hormonal roller coaster that is perimenopause. So went there, did that, got the postcard and the t-shirt. To be honest, I was really looking forward to menopause. I was looking forward to stepping into a new phase of my life. I never had a very comfortable relationship with my body in youth and in my womanhood. I had stuff happen to me when I was young that made me think that the physical body basically just brings you trouble, and I was quite happy to make it kind of invisible. I didn't treat it badly, but I didn't treat it as something sacred and worth, really tending to. I was more interested, I think, in the intellectual and spiritual part of my being. What I found following the menopause transition is there's this thing, right? You're told well, if you haven't had a period for a year, then you're in menopause. You've gone through the menopause transition. You're out the other side. I don't think it's that simple, because we can't just be defined by a period that doesn't come anymore. We're so much more than that. When I look back on it all, it feels like, yes, there are those markers, but there needs to be a period of settling. We've just had devastating effects of a Cyclone Gabrielle here in New Zealand, and the region that I live in, Hawke's Bay, has been, well, it really kind of bore the brunt of it, and it has been devastating. The whole landscape has changed, and there has been this lived experience now of things continuing to move, the earth continuing to move after the event had taken place. And I have found myself reflecting on this with menopause. Our bodies, our minds, the hormones or the lack of, all of that continues to move. It takes time for it to settle. So menopause isn't as simple as ticking a box saying there are no periods anymore. There's a whole assimilation of these physiological changes to enable us to step into this new way of being. So here's the thing. We're talking a lot more about perimenopause, but what I'm noticing is the focus is on all these symptoms, and I see, and it hurts my heart actually to see it, women on forums and things really devastated by the symptoms they're experiencing, and I feel fear and panic in women's words on these forums and things. Oh my God, I've got brain fog, or hot flush, or aching joints, or I can't think straight, or my libido's gone. And there's this maelstrom of anxiety around it. What is being offered up are ways to deal with it, and those ways could be HRT or natural remedies or a combination of them all. There's a lot of talk about trying to keep your body fit and young and all of these things. What I don't hear is anything really being offered up for our inner world, for our emotional and intellectual and spiritual self. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. I found myself thinking, and I wonder if you've thought about it as well, and if you have, I'd love to hear comments and things. I think now of perimenopause as a liminal space between our fertility years and our post-menopausal wisdom years, as I like to call them. So if you can picture for that flowering of youth and beauty and womanhood, and then the post-menopausal years of no more fertility. I'm going to go into different layers of this as we go on, but I'm just going to start there first. Perimenopause is that liminal space between these two worlds, the worlds of fertility and the worlds of no fertility. In liminal spaces, we are given incredible invitations to dream, to reflect, to think about the things that we are letting go of and the things that we are calling in. So what happens if, instead of looking at perimenopause as a time of horrendous symptoms, of change, of storm, of maelstrom, what if we looked at it as the initiatory space into an even deeper sense of being in this world with our women's wisdom? What if we saw perimenopause as that shamanic, almost like a vision quest, that shamanic test and challenge and clearing and cleansing that prepares you to step into being the shaman or being the wise woman? How does that feel? I think that feels kind of interesting. If you think about it, when we start our periods as young girls or young women, we are coming into this period of life where we are able to birth a physical being. Perimenopause, what if it is a gestation and then a labor for birthing in a soulful, spiritual, wise being? What if perimenopause is the time that we are gestating and giving birth to us as wise woman elder? What I then find myself thinking about is ceremony, ritual. Ceremony and ritual have always had an important and necessary function in cultures and societies to help mark transformational moments. So what if we used ceremony and ritual to mark the transformational moment we find ourselves in as we journey as women through perimenopause? And what if we use ceremony and ritual to mark the transformational moment when we are through perimenopause and out the other side as a post-menopausal woman? The art of ceremony and ritual makes something sacred. The art of ceremony and ritual enable a coming together of community to support someone as they journey through that transformational time. So I feel that there is this need to bring this side of the perimenopause transition, the menopause transition, kind of out into the light, get it out from under the carpet, make it here and available and part of the way that we can navigate this transition. And so I've tried this out with a few people. I created a ceremony. I've done it a few times online and in person now. And women who went through it spoke of things like surrender and reclamation and self-care. They spoke of feeling empowered by this act of marking this transformational moment with ritual and ceremony. That's wonderful. We're all busy in world, so I try to do this where people come along online, live together to do this, and I will keep doing that. But I also realize, look, we're all busy and we're all in different time zones, and we all, we have this thing called the internet. So I've created an offering called At the Threshold, a ceremony for perimenopause that you can sign up for and go through in your own time. And by making it available in that form, it is a ceremony that you can return to as often as you need it, and it might be something that you might want to do with friends and things. So that felt really important, to be able to do that, to hold that space for women. There are amazing and beautiful and dedicated health professionals holding space for women in a health and medicine sense of looking at menopause. But I want to hold space for the emotional, spiritual soul journey through this transition. I think that perimenopause is an invitation to prepare ourselves for fully embracing our post-menopausal wisdom years, our eldering years. I talk to a lot of women. I get lots of people coming to me because as archeus, part of what I do is I make natural products and remedies to help support women through this transition. So I get a lot of emails from women asking for advice and wanting to know should they get this or that or whatever it is. I hear some incredible stories. There are stories of loss, but equally, or actually even more so, there are stories of gain. Women talk about when they gave themselves permission to embrace menopause and this transition, and what it has enabled them to let go of and to bring in. They speak of this sense of real empowerment. They speak of really seeing this now as a time where they can be women in their own right, on their own terms, following their own dreams. Wonderful. I do a lot of work that draws on writings of ancient mystics and sages and philosophers and physicians. And so when I look back at their writings, a word that comes up a lot is magic. Natural magic, the magic of nature, the magic of cosmos, the magic of spirit. And there is this idea of using amulets or precious stones or plants or pigments to draw in the magic, the power of different elements, of spirit, of planets. And it's this idea of magic to enhance your way of being. What happens when, rather than fearing our symptoms as we go through perimenopause, we start to look at the magic within those symptoms? You know, for some people who are really struggling with those symptoms, this may be too big a leap to take, but let's just suspend judgment and disbelief for a moment and think, what is the magic in this? Take a hot flush, for example. When I was traveling through perimenopause, I found myself thinking, rather than trying to fight the hot flush, which, you know, is a battle you just ain't gonna win, quite frankly, I started to flow with it. And when I got hot flushes, sure, they were hot, but I marveled at the raw energy I could feel burning through me. I was in awe and wonder of it, and I thought, gosh, how can I ride this wave of energy to ride this hot flush? And I found that after a while, hot flushes just became these magical reminders of this extraordinary flame of energy and vitality I have in my body. It was wonderful. Can we work with our perimenopause symptoms to draw down power, to imbue us with some kind of magic, or to surface some kind of magic within them? I'm going to just put that out there into the ether. I had an interesting conversation with someone the other day who was struggling with perimenopause and said, you know, I can't quite get my head around menopause and life beyond menopause. And she asked me, what would Hildegard of Bingen have said? So Hildegard of Bingen, if you don't know, is the most extraordinary 12th century abbess, mystic, herbalist, healer, writer, artist. She is an incredible woman. And she lived in Europe, in Germany. She died when she was 83. So she had a very long life. So when this person said to me, oh, what would Hildegard say? I replied, well, Hildegard would probably have said, in my time, the average life expectancy was about 42 years. So menopause, there wasn't much of a leap between menopause and death, really. so kind of wasn't really an issue. There was a bit of a chuckle about that. But this got me thinking further as well, because I thought it was a really interesting question. So 800 years ago, our life expectancy was around 42 years. Menopause is the ending of our fertility years, and our body is winding down. But between 800 years ago and today, we've seen a massive increase in terms of management of health outcomes, quality of life, quality of living, and this is in the developed world. And so our life expectancy has increased. And that has happened quite quickly because we're able to, in quotation marks, better manage health outcomes. But in evolutionary terms, our body and our body's evolution hasn't traveled at the same speed as those changes to management of health outcomes and quality of life. So we're still having transitions that were very much at the end of a shorter life. Now they're kind of bang in the middle of our modern day life expectancy. So I see that there is an evolutionary process that is like those landslides moving after the cyclone has taken place. It takes time for things to catch up and to settle. So maybe we will see in an 800 years from now, maybe it is that menopause is something that happens later in life. Or maybe 800 years from now, we're living life back in a lower life expectancy due to the conditions that we're finding life is taking place in. That is a whole other conversation, of course. So the other thing I think about is I have a very nature-based approach to life. My spirituality comes from nature. Nature helped me heal from trauma as a child. So I love paying attention to my body, my being, and my spiritual being as part of nature, not separate to it at all. We are nature. And nature has its seasons. So we are the seed that's germinated at conception. We have spring is our childhood and adolescence and youth. We're growing, we're budding, we're bursting on the bough. Then summer, we are reaching a maturity. We are adults and we are able to bear fruit of our own. And those fruit may be children, they may be creative endeavors, they may be career outcomes, but there is this summer. Then we start moving from summer into autumn, and it is a time of harvest. Those fruits come to bear. We are able to, put away for that rainy day of winter coming. Autumn also sees the retraction back, the sap that rose in spring starts retreating back down into the roots of plants and of trees. Leaves start to fall as everything prepares this dying away for winter, for hibernation, for an internalization of our lived experience. So I thought of perimenopause as, in a way, I called it cusping. We're on the cusp of the autumn-winter cusp. So perimenopause, we think of the losing of hormones as our estrogen levels drop. We're losing energy. We're losing these things like autumn leaves fall from the tree. Our fertility years are like autumn leaves starting to fall from the tree. We are preparing for our wintering. Winter, the season of our eldering. If we think of that inwardness, where when we were younger we had this outwardness, we were all breasts and hips and beauty and hair and gorgeousness, And now our gifts are moving inwards. I think, though, in saying that, I want to say I think there is often nothing more beautiful than looking at the lines on a woman's face. Grey hair, wide hips, the form, the physical form of the wise woman is truly beautiful. And we've seen it represented in sculptures and statues and amulets that we've found from across millennia. So this wintering, this inwardness, to me, what it is saying is we're turning inward. This is a time, as we move through perimenopause and cusp into our wintering, this is about preparing ourselves for this journey inwards, the soul journey. So where the first part of our life we may have been driven by a lot of our outward physical way of being in the world, now I feel us moving towards being driven by and invited to tend to our inward world, our interior world. Who am I? What lights me up? What is the legacy I wish to leave behind me? What is the world I want to hand on to others? What is the art I want to make? What is the wisdom I want to share? To me, all of this is acknowledgement of our interior world. And we could welcome that wintering in. So perimenopause is that liminal state between the full flowering of youth and mature adult to the dropping of the autumn leaves, heading to cusp into winter, our non-fertile years. Perimenopause is a gestation and a birthing at that cusp of wise woman elder. So if we see all of that, then perimenopause symptoms become some of those initiatory rites of passage like we see in shamanic traditions, in all sorts of traditions that see us mark from move from one way of being to another, see us as being recognized by our society and community and culture as a wise woman elder, no more the child, no more the woman in all her fertility. We are now the woman in all her wisdom. So that's what I've been thinking about today. And in my emergence into my wisdom years and my eldering, one of the gifts that I want to offer up for those coming after me are these words, are these ways of looking at this transition. And if you want to do my perimenopause ceremony, then you can find it on my website. There's a link in the podcast notes below and in the blog below, however you've come here, in the YouTube thing. However you've got here, it doesn't matter. It is there for you. At the Threshold, a ceremony for perimenopause, one of the offerings. There are natural remedies and offerings are for the physical form. And also I love doing it. I do this thing, unlocking potential, and it's a one-on-one session. We build together a picture of you in complete relation to nature and cosmos. We look at the planets and their influences on your emotional, spiritual, and physical being. And we look at the landscapes and plant allies and elements that can really help you unlock the potential of your wisdom years. And so if you'd like to do that, if that kind of gets you curious, you can find that as well. I think that part of my pathway through this is about how do I show up for others. And for me, my personal route through this is showing up in a way that can help nurture interior worlds. So I hope that there may have been some nuggets in here for you. Maybe things have resonated. If they have, drop a comment into the comment section. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And I wish you well on this journey. Let it not be one of fear and frustration. It can also be a labor into a whole new way of being. And I know labor is not painless. Labor is not painless. But bringing in, birthing this new way of being can bring beautiful, beautiful gifts. So that's me. I'm Georgina Langdale, and it's been lovely having you here with me today in the Soul Garden. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Archeus Natural Living, and my website is archeus.nz. And until next time, go well, be well, and just be your beautiful, extraordinary self. Bye.